good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. Here I am talking to you. And I'm here in the non-disclosed location. Very comfy, very warm. I've been cooking. Anyway, I just wanted to say, hey, come aboard. I'm going to be doing a show in about 15 minutes. Okay? So come on by. Maybe I'll stay here. Let's see. Unplug. So eschatology, that's our subject. Aliens, eschatology, and kindness. Here it is, New Year's Eve, and I am, as I said, I'm cooking. So here's a nice chicken, curry, lemon, and this is pasta, spinach, chicken. So this is and I'm making some in my old rice cooker, right? And I'm going to see how Amy is doing.
Pentagon's claimed 30 attacks on boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, killing at least 107 people. The Trump administration claims without evidence the boats were carrying fentanyl bound for the U.S. and calls that people killed narco-terrorists. For more, we go to Caracas, where we're joined by journalist Adriana Chavez. Her latest piece for Drop Site News headlined, War of the Entire People. Venezuela's grassroots rise to resist Trump's naval blockade. Andreina, can you start off by talking about the response to this latest news? President Trump said it himself last week, though he didn't say there was a CIA land attack on Venezuela. He said there was a U.S. attack, and now in the days, U.S. administration officials say it was a CIA strike. If you can talk about both that, the killing of people in these boats, and how the people of Venezuela are responding.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, so as you know, in the last 4 months, since August specifically, the United States has been amassing a large
Pretty yummy.
buildup in the Caribbean.
So I'm letting it set.
Drug trafficking. And under that pretext, they have been bombing dozens of small boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific, and they have killed over 100 people. Now, there is absolutely no evidence so far that these people, these civilian boats, were actually drug trafficking. There is no evidence of that. In fact, if you look at the data, at international data, you will find out that Venezuela doesn't produce cocaine or fentanyl. So the narrative that the United States is pushing, that these boats were coming from Venezuela and were carrying drugs and they were heading for the United States, doesn't really rely on any verifiable evidence. Cocaine and fentanyl are not produced in Venezuela. Cocaine is mainly produced in countries like Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and only less than 10% of that cocaine produced in those countries passes through Venezuela. Less than 10%. That means that more than 80% of the cocaine that is produced in Latin America reaches the United States via land, via Central American nations that are actually allies with the U.S. government, and via the Pacific. So the idea that these folks are carrying trucks that are coming from Venezuela and heading to the United States is not credible. And in the case of fentanyl is produced in North American countries and reaches the United States by land through the Mexican border. So basically, the United States is killing people in the Caribbean and the Pacific with absolutely no evidence. In fact, United Nations experts have already made it very clear that these are extrajudicial killings. And even if there was the suspicions that these folks were carrying drugs, the correct procedure would be to seize and to detain the people, to detain the boats. And the United States is not doing that. They're just killing them. And why? You have to ask yourself, why is the United States simply killing these people, bombing these civilian vessels instead of doing the correct procedure? But because they don't really care about the whole drug trafficking issue. They know that these vessels most likely are just civilians and fishermen. They care.
They care about going to war. So here it is, right? Eschatology. What is that word? Eschatology is, we take it apart. We look at the Greek roots, right? And so ology is basically the study of stuff, right? So that's why I'm a psychosocial, cultural, forensic anthropologist. All those ologies don't work unless you use them together. So ology is from the root logos, the word, right? About, right? And esken is eschatein, that's the Latin root, and that is end times or forward, what's coming next, right? So here we are on New Year's Day, or New Year's Eve day, and I'm making a New Year's meal, which is always a good thing, you know. Where did I put my glasses? But you got it, let's see, I'll get it right. Christine really meant. Yep. Basically, you know, back in Jesus' time, no one spoke Hebrew. Even the high hippie holies couldn't speak Hebrew. Yeah, they could mumble a few words. It's like me being a altar boy back in the day. Yeah, I could speak Latin, but, you know, the nun broke my jaw and crushed my esophagus. You know, I couldn't really talk. And I was still somewhat of a sickly little guy pretty much my whole life, from birth until about 10. And then from 10 to 14, I got better and better. And by the time I was 14, I started to, shoot up like a sprout, right? By 16, I was almost 6 foot. 17, I was 6 foot. And I went from a little guy, which was not a bad thing to be a little guy, because everyone didn't even notice me. So I perfected the technology and the eschatology of being invisible, right? So I could listen, I had this ear that was really good. If you see me talking to people, I'm always pointing this ear at them. This is my interesting ear, meaning it's like Doppler radar. I can tell whether things are coming towards me or going away from me, how close they are, whether they're up in the air or down on the ground. And so that's that ear. And other frequencies, like I can, if I'm with someone, I can hear different, their heart, not the heartbeat per se, but the fluids going through their body. We have 9 different intelligence sources in our body, right? And we just don't have our nervous system and our renal system. No, we have all these, carotid arteries. We have this thing called cranial sacral. There are 9 fluid systems that go through our body, right? Lots of frequencies. Yep. And that's really what we are. We are an electrochemical device, right? We are a spiritual entity living in a physical, this is our avatar, right? And so this is the vehicle, the car we drive around. Like when I say my prayers, and I'm always saying about 40 times a day, I say, Jesus, please help me out here. I don't have a clue. You take the wheel, drive the car. That's me. That's this. This is the car. This right here, right? And God, help me out here. I don't understand the dynamics of this, I'm putting my whole existence in your hands. in the agave love of being your, not only your griot here to tell your story, but I am the, the assistant to the midwife is the, forgot the word. But anyway, that person does all the work, right? And does it in a way that all the glory and everything goes to the midwife, and you are the griot. No, not the griot. Griot's the storyteller. That's me. That's kind of my job. I've been told many, many times by God that just you don't have to make people believe. All you gotta do is tell the story. That's all you got. That's your job. Tell the story, and be that sweet little puddinhead you are, right? And I'll take care of the rest. So here we are, and here we are just on the precipice, the doorstep of 2026, right? And since, Prince, since 90, right? Since 89, basically, things have just gotten weirder and weirder. We had Bill Clinton. First, we had good old Herbert Walker. And he basically, had a war and didn't ask anybody. He just, invaded Iraq. And he went straight up to the north. And where he went was where the Germans and the French were digging up real interesting artifacts. You ever see the TV show or the movie Stargate? That's what they were digging up, right? And they weren't going to share with us. So we took our whole military right through Iraq, straight up to where the Germans and the French were, and said, okay. And the English went along with us because they're the guys who really, manipulate us big time, right? They used to be the big imperial force, and then the War of 1812, basically we started what was known as the special relationship. Yeah, the special relationship, right? And that was, we were going to be given worthless paper for all the resources that we had, and we would be allowed to be corporate pirates, right? If you watch, what's his name in the Pirates of whatever that is, and he's drunk all the time. That was us, drunk all the time, right? That was Europe, The Dark Ages, the Vatican kept everyone drunk. The water was poison. I mean, even though the Romans had the best plumbing. Anyway, so first of all, we have been basically bankrupt since good old Andrew Jackson, right? The European English Bank put in the second stage bank back then, before Andrew Jackson, right? And it went through, and that was like a central bank, right? And the thing that made America very strong was that basically every town, city, county, state, and federal government had its own script. So there was no way to crash the economy. Now, it was defined what your script was worth by how much money or gold or silver. Those guys out in Colorado had a lot of silver, right? They had a lot of value in their script. The guys in California had a lot of gold. They had a lot of, that's why California became the premier economic state, because of its size, its location, its topography, and it had a lot of gold, right? And it was quite a, so you have to understand that no one, everyone goes, oh, the lake of fire, oh, Satan made me do it. No, sorry, kids. What it is that Satan exists, but all a Satan can do is tempt us. He's a little snake, right? It's you who do the shit. You who hurt people, you who kill people, you who destroy, or you who are generous, you who are kind. You who are, and that's what this year has to be. This year has to be the year of kindness, or this is going to be the year of eschatology. So Um, Basically, anyone who's going after, first of all, back in the day of Jesus, everyone spoke Greek. Even Jesus spoke Greek, right? And the thing about the King James, no one who writes in King James was there. Not a single person. Ooh, sorry. And the Old Testament they have, and the 12 tribes, there was no Moses. There was no rule keeper. I mean, that's why, God was always miffed at Israel, because they were acting and still do act like, you know, a bitchy girlfriend who steals God's cigarettes and loose change, right? That's why, and every place where happened in the Bible really wasn't in, the 12 tribes, wasn't in the Torah, Talmud, or Kabbalah. No, sorry, not there, right? And all of that stuff is pretty much Vatican comic book makeup. Now, don't believe a word I say. I'm just a storyteller. Like God keeps telling me, don't worry, Al, just keep telling the story. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to make anyone believe. Just, put it out there, right? So this year is the year of eschatology, or the year of kindness, right? So here we have a war in Ukraine that should never have happened, right? And, you know, good old George H. Herbert Walker Bush, he basically goes into Iraq and takes the technology back to CERN, to Switzerland, and say, okay, we have our own version in Area 51, but and the Russians have their own version, and we're going to let you kids who love to play with stuff and reinvent reality, because that's what CERN does. See, you guys, I keep talking about love's co-creation, right? And being in the covenant of love's co-creation. And that we are the ark, the carrier of love's co-creation, right? That's kindness, right? Now, if you want to see what the lake of fire is, you look at John Birmingham. He just called me, and he was like, every time he calls me, he records me, right? Which is like, and then he tries to, use his AI to make some piece of crap, and it does not represent me. Anything you see on there, other than the old Irish crone, or the, whatever, really anything on John's, is just, the lake of fire. John lives in the lake of fire. He's on this top of this mountain, that school, why it was built there. I mean, both Inga and George. Oh, George was a Russian misfit. Inga was a princess from Sweden. They were just people, you know, out of time, right? And so they were, especially Inga. She was always. I mean, she was giving life to her son, Mishka, Mickey boy, who's one twisted sister, and you know. He's another boy who he's like John Boy. John Boy's heart is good. He wants to be sweet, wants to be nice. That's who his base platform is, right? But he is so twisted. His ego is so narcissistic. It just is out there. He can't even think of anybody. If it's everything's a transactional thing, right? Every time he worked for people, he like freak out and scream and yell at them, and then he'd give them like 5 times more money than they asked for, right? And they were going, "Oh, should I take? Oh, okay, thank you," and they would leave and never come back again because some guys did just to keep squeezing the lemon. So again, that's eschatology for you. And so John Boy, we had to pray for John, right? Father, hear our prayer. John Boy, your canary in the coal mine of the lake of fire, help him let go. Help him let you take the wheel. Because if John Boy can do this, the rest of the world can. John's worse than Putin, worse than, anybody you want to say, oh, that person's terrible. John is that. But he's up on top of the mountain and he doesn't have access to the missile codes. Because if he did, ooh, watch out. I mean, he threw me out of that place 30 something times, right? And after the second time, I said, well, next time he does it, I won't even, I should make a go bag, and I did. But he already went through all my stuff the first time, and that was sad. He took all my pictures of family, of my grandparents getting married, of me getting married, other really sacred things, really sacred things, right? Things if you steal, your soul is damned to the lake of fire. You know what I'm saying? And most of the people here walking around, they're already brain dead. They're already walking dead. They're already zombies, right? Because, you look what happened. First we have been oh, let's see, how many minutes have I been talking here? 21. That's pretty interesting. Oh boy, I'm gonna plug in here so I can talk forever. Anyway, so we were talking about Andrew Jackson, right? So the special relationship started in the War of 1812. Basically, the Revolutionary War, 1776, was paid for, promoted for by good old Mr. Rothschild through Russia. Why did we get Alaska? Because Russia, gave us money, gave us gold, and put their navy so that English couldn't, and the South couldn't break away. So what caused the Civil War was Andrew Jackson killed the English second bank, right? And that was, the second shot of England, the city of London, putting in a central bank in the United States. And like I said, the thing that made America free was that everybody had their own script, right? There was no way of crashing the economy, of squeezing the lemon, right? And so bio robots, yep, that's what they are, playing with yourself. Yep, that's basically it. And that's nothing wrong with jacking off. We are wired, like, sex is about procreation. Sex is babies, right? Gender is like the gradating scale, right? Of fun. It's like, it's that wee woo wee woo. Why do they call people gays? Because they're so gay, And there's nothing wrong with any of that. God made us all. We have to accept who and what we are. Me, I'm just a cheeky little monkey that tells stories, right? I'm here to be kind, nice. I'm Bob, Santa Claus, younger brother Bob. I'm Bob, head of the naughty and nice list, right? So whenever I go out and about, I'm always there to give folks a good word, give them a reading of their palms, which is just a stick. I can cold read people like from across the room. I don't have to look at their palm, but if I did that, people would get a little upset. But I'm like, oh, put your hand up. And so this here is how honest you are. I mean, I can't do it, but I'm an honest guy. I can't lie, but I know not to speak, right? See these two fingers? See how they're kind of, they're almost even, but they're not. I'm not passive aggressive. I'm basically, what's the word? Impatient with people's stupidity. So I'm not, passive aggressive. I can get, but I see that moron 4 blocks away. I just walk the other way. So by the time to get where I was, I'm not there. And you need to learn how to do that, gang. Here, coming into 2026, that's got to be one of your new things. Conscious intent, I am. Consciousness awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, what is that, right? Conscious awareness is knowing you're 20, where you are. Hey, good buddy, what's your 20? Like, what's the mile marker? Where are you? And if you do that, you can actually see what's going on so you don't get shit caught in your grill, right? You look like you have, what's that diet? What? Of course, I got everything, kids. I got diabetes. But what is that? I can't read that word. You got to put this stuff in large letters so I can read it. Is that diabetes? I've told you. I've got diabetes. I got charcoal legs. I got neuropathy. You name it, I got it, right? But here's the but. Because I serve Lord's love's co-creation. Yeah, my body is beat up. And why is that? Because I spent a good 60 years having an amazing, great time. I missed death like 5 times before the last 2. I still got another 2 to go. Again, I can't read what you say, whatever you are, golf or... Who in their right mind has such a long address, Anyway, or one that I can't even read. No, I didn't eat processed food. No. I went out to dinner. I worked for the corporate elite. We went to the finest 10-star restaurants and had like 60,000 calorie dinners and just the best of life. The life of kings, And Donald Trump, he eats fast food. He has, But whoever you are, you seem like you're in the lake of fire. I can smell the roasted marshmallows right through the phone. But hey, come on. Don't be a moron. Put things into capitals. I know you're not screaming at me. It's like, so I can read it. Anyway, but you can keep it small, and that means that's how small you are. You're a teeny, teeny, teeny thing. Not a person, not an intellect, not a consciousness, not someone who is walking with God, right? So that's fine. You want to choose that, that's good. It's all up to you. You still have your togs? The God that's in your heart. That's the only God that matters. The God that's in your heart. The God that makes you feel love's co-creation. You don't feel that, wrong God. Right? If you're a Pharisee, a lawyer of the liturgy, right? Anyway, so back to where we are. So here it is, New Year's Day, and I just cooked a very healthy meal. And I'm a really good cook. I've had I've owned a lot of restaurants, built a lot of restaurants, fed a lot of people, right? At all kinds of events, right? And because I'm Italian and Irish and German. And each of those, Italians are really, they love to cook, they love to share food. The Germans do too, but they're bakers. So I can bake, but not like my mom or my family that Steinbeck's, that was my mom. And, John Steinbeck was my second cousin. He used to come to Thanksgiving dinner. He and Thomas Merton used to also come to Thanksgiving dinner. And they would sit with me at the kids' table, me and my cousin Johnny. Now, cousin Johnny was a hoot. I mean, he was a cheeky monkey, brilliant as the day is long, and gayer than a $3, however gay can be, he was. And he was proud to be gay, right? And around 18, he went off to Stanford, full scholarship, computer scientist, worked for NASA, JPL, all the above. He helped write the software for the Vikings and the things that went out of the solar system. Anyway, and the two of us would get together, we would we were crazy monkeys, right? So anyway, but he was a great guy and sweet, sweet guy and really, really smart, right? And I saw him when he left. He hitchhiked out of, he got a job, coding when he was like 12, right? And for Sperry, he too was part of the young scientists. Anyway, so anyway, he saved up his cash, bought his car so he could get a driver's license. He shot across America and went to California, and the rest is history. Anyway, so but that back in the 50s, it was John Steinbeck, me, and Thomas Merton, and my cousin Jonathan. And he was just the sweetest, smartest. Now there's a guy, man. He could have complained, but he didn't because he was gayer than gay. I mean, when he popped out, he was like, "Yeah, let me put on an evening gown." Yeah, It's like, oh, he used to come over to our house and get dressed up in my mother's clothes. It was, and he was like 4. It was like just so much fun, and that's what I really learned not to be prejudiced. Now, prejudice is one step beyond biased. Biased is like you have an opinion on something, right? That's okay. You can have an opinion on stuff. And that bias is like, oh, I don't like ketchup. I like tomato sauce, but I don't like ketchup. That's a bias, right? Prejudice is when I'm right about ketchup. I can't stand it. It's terrible, So. So anyway, here it is. The last day of 2025. And this year, let's look at it. First of all, it was just a replay of 2016. And 2016 was just a replay of 2008. 2008 was a replay of 2000, the hanging Chad, I mean, 2016, Hillary Clinton won by 6 million votes, but the Electoral College put Donnie in there, right? Because Donnie was put there. He's a game show host. He's not, evil incarnate. I mean, he's a sad sick of shit, but he's not, Satan. No, sorry. Even, what's his name? Cohen, Roy, his mentor, who was, ooh-wee. I used to build nightclubs. I redid Studio 54, The Saint. I was a Emmy of a lot of places. Anyway, Xenons, a lot of places. Wetlands, Danceteria. But 54 was those because underneath in the basement of Studio 50, that thing had been many, many things. And one of the things that had been was a slaughterhouse. So downstairs, there were still the hooks and the chains. And so really strange things where, burnt offerings were going on down there. And that still goes on, meaning all the stuff you heard about the pizza parlors and all that. Of course, Jeffy was, he's a cutout. And everyone talks about this group or that group or this group or that group. No, they're all the same group. Hail Hydra, Guys, it's all an illusion. The only thing that's real is love's co-creation, right? That's all it is. Everything else is an illusion. So you want to, it's like when I died the last time in 2014. I died, and I died in a place, Linguini, and a mobster fancy restaurant in Miami with the corporate lawyers. And bang, I was telling a story, and then next thing I'm on a gurney going into an operating room, coming out of an ICU. And I got the fentanyl in my arms, and I wake up and I go, whoa, 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 and they can't believe it. I should be because they were about to cut my legs off, take 20 feet out of my colon, and do open heart surgery, give me quad bypass, right? So, you know, uh, and I weighed 480 pounds, right? And but when I died in that plate of spaghetti, it wasn't that; it was linguine. And when I died in that plate of linguine, I basically bang! I was in the basement cafeteria of Hitler's Rifle Squad, HRS, Holy Redeemer School. That's where the nun murdered me. Anyway, and there were all these signs, welcome home, did a great job. There were balloons, but everything was this dark brown green. I don't know if you have this in your mental capacity, but in schools when I was a kid in the 50s, they would throw this sawdust that had pine sol in it. So there's this vomity smell of pine sol that's kind of stuck in pretty much a lot of people's mental sensory memory. But anyway, there I am in this place, and the whole thing is made out of this sawdust. I mean, the walls, the tables, the light fixtures, you name it, it was all this dark green kind of vomity sawdust pine sol, right? And the cake, they had a big, you know, flat cake saying, welcome home, and you did a great job, and everyone's patting me on the back. And I'm going, oh, okay, this is where I am. And then all of a sudden, I look, and there's God. And I look at him, and I look back, and everyone else is gone. I mean, the place was full like Grand Central Station in the midst of rush hour. Bang, nobody there, right? Just this big, forever big, gigantic space of HRS's, cafeteria in the basement, right? And so I said, God says to me, well, you're doing a good job. I'm really happy with you. And I said, but I'm tired. I'm ready. Come home. And he goes, well, look around. You want to stay here for eternity? You can. No problem. I said, what? He said, yeah, you got to go back. What? I said, don't worry. You've done 89% of everything I've ever wanted you to do. You're doing a great job. You are a lucky bastard. You're one of my favorites. You're such a cheeky monkey. I just love you, right? And you always talk. We always walk together. You always talk to me. You never turn your back, no matter what happens to you. You had so much happen to you that you could have why me? You could have been Job, but you didn't. You said, oh, I can learn from this. And that's what I love to hear. I can learn from this because when you learn stuff, buddy, meaning me, that means I, meaning God, learned something. Okay, because we are God's reflection. In The Great Gatsby, the book of Genesis, made in the image and likeness. So what we are is just a kind of little filament of God's love, right? The rest is we have been manufactured. You ever seen that movie, The Matrix? That's kind of what it is, right? But you can, when you take that red pill, that's when you decide to be the co-creator, the decider of your own existence. That's what you can do. You can be thrown, speedballs and spitballs and curveballs at your head, and you can still not get whacked, right? So it's up to us, right? To in every day and every way take the piece of the earth and make it stronger, right? So can't even. Again, guys, we have our friend here. He at least got to got the memo and started to print big. And he's not shouting at he's not screaming at me. See, I used to stutter a great deal. And the best thing to do when you're just about to get, it's like a catch. It's like stutter is a catch. And part of my stuttering is that, my esophagus got crushed, my jaw got broken, my larynx got pushed into another direction. So I had to learn how to breathe a whole different way to get air through my larynx. And so, and you can see how my jaw is, right? Anyway. Yes, you too. Hey, good boy. Happy New Year's Eve. Yep. So here we are, and we're tomorrow, or hours, let's see, it's 2 p.m. Eastern time here. So that means in another 10 hours, it'll be New Year's, right? 10 hours and 10 minutes. We'll give that a say. But in other places, it's already New Year's, right? So we're already into 26, right? The human race is running that race, right? So all the stuff up to right now has just been a replica of what happened, since I did in the beginning. 26, this New Year's, this is a very interesting time. We are going to experience some pretty amazing things. Again, we're going to be like a roller coaster ride like you can't believe, like the crash of the world's economy. You think '08 was bad? You think '72 was bad? I mean, those were just things getting us ready for this, right? Because we are going to, and we have nuclear war on every doorstep. We have nuclear war with China. We have nuclear war in Europe with Russia and NATO, and nuclear war in Venezuela because Russia has some missiles there. We just, bombed a harbor, right? So if we really attack Venezuela has the capability to punch back, punch up, right? And we have put, 30% of our whole naval everything, our biggest, baddest, most expensive boat, Jerry Ford, in harm's way. And so if Venezuela wanted to, it could go after that stuff and sink a bunch of it and kill a lot of Americans. Does it want to? I think not. And does Donnie want to? No. What Donnie needs to do is his Treasury Secretary is a total putinhead. I mean, by February, by Valentine's Day, if we do not have $3 trillion to pay off our interest on not our debt, just our interest to rejigger our debt. If we don't cough up $3 trillion, which we definitely don't have, then we're going to default. And if America defaults, that's it. We're toast. I mean, we're not going anywhere, but no one's going to do anything with us, right? And we've already kind of semi-defaulted by what Donnie's done with because we could have rejiggered this, but because of Donnie's tariffs and everything else about him, but he was put there for this reason, to destroy America, kids. He brought in a Neon Husk with douche and just, in the first 10 weeks, pulled out every governmental server there was, and Neon took all of those servers down to his big brain down in Memphis, Tennessee, and he is killing everyone down there with air pollution from his bunker burning gas turbines, right? Now, we have so pissed Canada off, but we did that, back during Jimmy Carter's day, right? So they've been preparing this for a long time. They said, oh, they're so nice, they're so polite, we can take advantage of them anytime we want. You got to watch out for the quiet ones, right? So they've been preparing. And so once they experienced Donnie 1.0, they went, silent. They rejiggered NAFTA into the AmeriCorps, or whatever they call it, and then started financing and putting infrastructure in, so like a light switch, they could turn every connective tissue with America off, right? So Canada, as soon as Donnie went after him 2.0, and the good-looking boy was there going, ooh, what should I do? They put him, the grown-up, the guy who is in charge of the English Bank, Canadian Bank, and the World Bank. This guy who knows, he's a lawyer, he's an economist, he's a banker. One of those guys from, Babylon. So anyway, what's he do, right? Does he get upset? Does he jump up and down? No. He goes, okay, not a problem. So first thing he does, he picks very specifically specific things like booze from Kentucky, from Marblemouth's neck of the woods. Cut off 30% of the GDP of that state by just doing that. No more booze from Marblemouth's state, right? And then they went after very specific thing in red states with real moron senators and real, if things go wrong with that state, then shit happens to Donnie. So they did that first off, right? And said, okay, let's go negotiate. Let's sit here. They didn't scream, they didn't jump, they just did that. And then Donnie then went and tariffed the things that we need, like softwood. You got rid of that. The guys who build houses can't afford lumber from Canada. Bang, there are no houses being built. So that whole economy, gone. That means all those jobs, gone, right? That means all those washing machines and refrigerators and windows and you name it that are manufactured in America to go in these houses, gone, right? All those jobs, gone, right? Then he cut out copper, right? We have no copper in this country. Our largest provider of copper is Canada. Bang, gone, right? And the aluminum, right? Oh, we got to see, Coca-Cola cans. No. The aluminum that is really not coming in is aerospace grade aluminum, which is highly sophisticated. The supply chain for that, to get that, for us to make that, take us 40 years just to build the supply chain to do it. And they were selling it to us at a price that we couldn't get anywhere else. Gone, right? So we can't. So Boeing had to move its whole airframe thing to Canada. 3,000 jobs, gone. $500 billion, gone. What's that sound of? That's the sound of squeaky shoes. Anyway, so the other great thing is one of the biggest investors into not our debt, but into our New York Stock Exchange is Canada. They pulled out $800 billion last Monday, meaning all of the universities, all of the insurance companies, everyone's 401k in Canada that was invested in America, which was great because it was going through the roof since '08, and we were printing free money, and the stock market was just buying their stock back, so jumping it through the roof. Canada sold, they bought low and they sold high and left, never to come back again. $800 billion gone one Monday. The stock exchange went nuts. And then because it just couldn't deal with it, kind of turned it off. Silver, over in London, right? The silver market just closed. Didn't let it go up and down and all over the place. Just, unplugged, right? You go onto their website. Done. Sorry, we're not here. We're out for lunch. We'll talk to you later, right? Now these things are all going on. Do you see that on any CNN or Fox News? No, they're talking about the Jeffrey report. The thing about the Jeffrey report is that Jeffrey was just a cutout, and what he was sent to do by Hail Hydra was to get dirt on everyone he could, not just the American Congress and this and that, but every politician on the planet, right? And because when you have leadership, how does leadership work with other leadership? Well, they can't depend on them because they're as corrupt as they are, so they can't. So they have to get dirt on each other. And that's why all of these entities, all of these countries, they all, why do they go up there to, that place in California, Bohemian Grove, and do really things, right? If you go to, the Bible and you read about, burnt offerings, it's the same thing, Are let's let sacrificing our children to Moloch, Any war that you see that the majority of the people who are dying are women and children, that's a satanic event, especially if it's being well, documented. I mean, yes, the main media may not be in there, but everyone's cell phone sure taking it down and putting it on the World Wide Web and giving it to you in TikTok. That is basically a seminal, satanic. But see, when you say satanic, it's like people. Donald Trump's the evil. He's a 666. No, he's a fascist. No, he's a game show host. That's it. He's a grifter game show host who is like sociopathic, hedonist / totally about him. So. So that's what we're looking at, right? Plus, we have this thing shooting through our solar system, right? And it's still here. It should have gone away a month ago, but it's still here. It's like moving around too. It's not a trajectory. It's not like coming in super duper fast and then splitting, right? It's hanging around. So I would say we are going to have a visitation of, an alien, something like straight from the day the Earth stood still. Michael Rennie will be coming out in a Mylar suit, So, and they will say, hey, we are the Elohim. We are the guys who made you. No, they're talking about the avatar, not the co-creation spirit, right? Not the heart, right? So anyway, so that's what we got to look forward to, kids, So that means the economy crashes. Our Donnie has already toasted our farmers, we won't really have supply chains, for food. We're just about to have probably the most amazing whack job snow, winter, cold, bomb, cyclone, super frozen everything, right? And that's why I'm from friends who put me in a nice warm spot. I mean, being out there in the deep green is great for spring, summer, and fall. And I had my Florida houses for the winter. I never spent winter there, right? So, but when I got rid of all my wealth, I really only had the deep green. And from 2000, and that's one reason why I kind of stayed with Johnny Boy for 17 months. But I really wasn't with Johnny Boy for 17 months because he threw me out 30-something times, I basically was not there, And then I was there for maybe 4 months. From maybe, I think I sold the place to him in August, so end of August, September, October, November, December, January hits, and that's when he gets, his Russian mail order bride, and she shows up, and, he goes to the airport in D.C. to pick her up and brings her back, and she'd been on the airplane for like 38 hours, had eaten nothing, and so she's starving. Donnie won't even stop at a Burger King. And he comes, and I have a big dinner. I made like a roast duck with a chicken inside of it and all kinds of yummy things. And I went off to the store to get Russian teas and little cookies. And and I made a borscht, and I made Polanskis, and all the stuff I knew that were like comfort food to her, and got black bread and creamery butter and all this stuff. And she show up, and I am like the maitre d'. I, walk her in. I have a big fire burning. I take them downstairs to the big fireplace, and got the table set, and I have all the food ready, and it's all warm, and I got a bottle of wine and really good tea, and I just keep, and she starts to cry, and I hug her, and she goes, "Oh, it's so nice. This place is a castle. I love it all." And Johnny says, "Oh, yeah, yeah." That's what Johnny was doing. And so I was being really nice to him, and kept bringing him really great food, and she just loved it because she, hadn't eaten anything for the last 48 hours. And I cleaned up the bathroom I had where the washer dryer was. I put a rug down. I cleaned everything up. It was nice and snazzy, and I said, "Oh, you can take a shower here," and she did. She took the clothes she was flying in, and she put on some comfy things and some nice shoes, and came out and had all dinner ready for her. Oh, it was great. Right? Had music playing, and John's going, he's just being a monkey boy. That he is. He can't really take it, right? He can't. He just doesn't have it in him to be a compassionate, empathetic character, right? Now, he's got it in him. All humans do. We got that. But because of, God knows, and only God does know what happened to that boy, he is the, canary, genetically engineered monkey boy canary in the Lake of Fire's curtain. So, anyway. So, she, after about a nice 2-hour dinner, I brought out some lemon jello, which is a great liqueur, and they drank that. I had these nice little cookies, and, they went upstairs the back steps, and, I went to bed after kind of cleaning up a little bit, and went to bed about 6:30 in the morning. He's smashing on the door with a hammer. Get out, get out, get out. And I said, "John, how many cups of coffee do you have?" "Oh, 89. I said, "John, just relax. It's go upstairs to your sweetheart." "No, her pussy. She's got hair in her pussy, hair in her arms. Oh my God." Anyway, I tried to, John, just go back to sleep here. Come on. So he kind of went back up and went back to sleep. And then around 9:30, bang, smash, crash. He's smashing on the door with a hammer, "Get out!" And he's got screaming at me with a hammer in his hand. And this is when I did not have the time to have a go back. I did not expect to leave because it was really super cold, kind of icy, didn't really want to leave the warmth of my little room. And so anyway, I put some things in a bag, made sure I had my license and whatever cash I had. And I go outside, and there the girl is in this unbelievable mink coat from the top of her head down to her ankles. And she's got a hood. It's a beautiful coat. I mean, she's in it, and she's like smoking 3 cigarettes at one, and she's totally naked, and she's got really beautiful breasts, and yeah, she's got a big mound and hair. I don't see the hair under her pits, but she's very, very. And the coat's open, and she's like, "He's crazy. I don't know I can. How do I get out of this?" And I just get in the car. "Can I come with you?" And I said, I just enjoyed, get out. He had the hammer, and I said, "Okay." And I drove away. And that was probably, January sometime. And I kind of drove down the hill, right? Made it without killing myself. Hadn't really snowed. It was really cold. The sun had come up enough so it thawed whatever might have been a sheet of ice just into slushy ice. And I kind of got out of the Kia made it out. And I got down the hill and got out into, you know, Roanoke. And I had a full tank of gas. And still had some stuff in my car. I always, I'm prepared. I had a couple coats, a couple blankets, everything I needed to start a fire, to make a campsite, to a canned food, a can opener, a couple pots. My car is always kind of prepared. And so anyway, I went down the hill and stopped at this place that had pretty good coffee and a nice sticky bun, and I got one of those, and it was right near 220. And I said, I'm going to go visit my friends in West Virginia because this is this town that I knew of that I helped build. I mean, it was like washed away in a big catastrophe, and the coal company caused it, and they just walked away, and the town and the state did nothing, and no one did anything. But the town was kind of there, and the people could get out and leave, did, and left, maybe 100. And me and this girl who was a minister, she and I went up there, and we helped them out because there was gas there. And on the side of the town that was still the town, there was the utility, they kind of had their own generator. They had their own water system, and they had gas, and because in West Virginia there's so much gas in the ground that if you drill a hole on your property, you can burn it yourself. So anyway, I basically, look at this, and there were a couple of guys who were handy with tools, and we got the gas into the generator, and the generator started up, and we got electricity, and we got the water pumping through the town, and juice on the line, and the power poles that were ripped out, so we didn't have to worry about the utility company. We turned those mains off, and so it pretty much got back to a nice little town. No way to get out of there. There was this one little path where a logging road went down to the river, and when the river was running dryish, you could drive across if you had big wheels onto the other side, back in the backside of the town. But other than that, you couldn't get in and out of that place. So anyway, I said, I'm going to go visit that. I haven't seen those people. And it's middle of January. Like, what am I, nuts? Anyway, so I got on 220, and I drive, go all through Virginia, then up through West Virginia, and I'm driving, I'm heading towards 66. Right where 220 hits 66, there's like one of those little, places where there's a motel and a gas station or two, and a place where factory outlets and that kind of thing, right? Touristy kind of thing, and you're going to stop the night, you'd probably stop there. Anyway, so there is this great truck stop. Really, really, really good. Really great food. They bake their own breads. I mean, it's really one of the, and I think back in my mind, So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go. I just had a cup of coffee and a cinnamon bun. That's not going to tie me up. We're going to have a really good meal at this place. And I go in there, and I drive in, I park, I get out, I walk through the door, and there's this young girl. And she's sitting out there. She's wearing nice clothes, real expensive clothes. Her pants, her shirt, her jacket, you know, um, you know, one of those high-end hiking outfits that you could survive the cold and you still look nice. Anyway, she's there spare changing. I go, well, what's your story? She says, so you hungry? I said, yeah, I haven't eaten anything. I said, come on, I'm going to go have breakfast. I'll buy breakfast. You tell me the whole story. So she goes, yeah, sure. So she jumps up, and we go in there, and she tells me the whole story, how she graduated from some college in Georgia, and all her friends, basically, and I think this is around '08. I think we're going into January '09. And she goes, and I went to college, and mom and dad paid for everything, And then, '08 happened, and I graduated and couldn't get a job, and you know, and I said, so what'd you study? She goes, oh, I studied banking. I said, so when you were, didn't you get any internships? And she goes, no, freshman year, between freshman and sophomore, I went to Europe, and then I went to Asia between sophomore and junior to senior. I, I kind of went to California and partied. And I said, and you never worked there? My daddy paid for everything. I said, is he paying for this? He said, well, I said I had to get a job. And so the only job I could get was a barista at the coffee shop. And so, well, and a bunch of my friends and I in the summertime thought, well, we got some money. Why don't we pool our stuff and go up on the AT, Appalachian Trail, starting in Georgia, and go up to Maine and see where we might want to jump off and try something fun. So that's where she was, in West Virginia. She'd been, going on the AT since, May. Anyway, so and she only made it to West Virginia. So anyway, I go, okay. So we had that. I said, so where are you? She goes, well, about 20 miles from here, up in the mountains, kind of near the AT. And we found this little log cabin. It's kind of nice. I said, what's it got? It's a big fireplace, and a potbelly stove, and kind of windows and doors, but it's a little cold. It's a log cabin, and there's space between the logs, and the wind blows through. I go, okay. So, and there's a lot of garbage there. I said, oh, okay. So what else? He goes, oh, there's a couch or two, and it looks like the high school kids have been partying there. I said, okay. Well, let's go. So we go up there, and it's a beautiful day, and the wind isn't blowing, and it's, maybe 28 degrees, but the wind ain't blowing, it's sunny. We go out there, and, getting off the blacktop onto logging road, road's in pretty good shape, right? So we drive up there, and then we drive through the woods on another logging road. It's definitely, you don't want to be on that road if it's snowing or anything. But it's nice, and, it had been dry, and it had been, warm enough, so whatever moisture had gone into the ground, and then it got cold, so that road was concrete, so my little four-wheel drive Kia, not a problem. So we drove, and then kind of came up to, there's a river over there, and there's this thing, and there's the log cabin. We get out there, the kids, and they're just kind of, they pulled the couch out, and they're sitting in the sun, and they don't even have a fire burning, right? And so I pull out, and I got cans of stuff and all kinds of things, and so they don't even come up. We get out of the car, we walk over there, and I say, hey guys, what's happening? Your Susie Q here, she gave me the full story. I didn't know you're 411, so boy, let's go take a look at the cabin. And you gotta imagine, I've died. This is maybe '09. I died. Is it '09? So I haven't died yet. I haven't sold, so I guess it's not that, because I had sold the place in 15. So it had to be way after that. So they didn't even experience, they probably in grade school in '08. Anyway, so it's probably 2015. And anyway, so I'm, and Obama's president, right? And Donnie is running, right? Or no, he hasn't even declared yet. So anyway, so none of that exists, but that's where it is, around January of 15. And I basically, look around. We go in, and it's junk. Straight up, this has been a party house for like centuries, right? There's just junk everywhere. And this big fireplace, and with a wrought iron arm, and a big, kettle, right? And a wood stove right over there with a big frying pan on it. I go, boy, this is great. And I said, come on, let's go outside. So it hadn't snowed or rained, right? So everything's pretty dry. So I go in the back, and there's a little shed, and there's tools, right? big rake, shovel, axe, sledgehammer, maul, everything you need to really do something, right? So, and this other thing with little jars of nails and screws and all kinds. You're like, wow. So, okay, first thing we gotta do is get this place, warm, right? So, come on, everyone out, and let's. They were doing nothing. So me telling them to do stuff, they didn't go, I'm not going to do that. I said, you want to be warm? Let's do something. And so first doing something will warm you up, right? So you got any mittens? Put them on. You got a hat? Put it on, right? You got goggles? Put them on. So we go up there, and I said, first of all of the limbs, within 100 feet of this house, just bring them over to where that shed is, because it's one of those log cabin and then a back door, and the roof kind of went over the shed. So there was an open space, right, that was covered, right? So, I mean, I could almost fit the Kia in that space between the shed and the house. Yeah, I probably could have. I mean, it was a good 12 feet, so I could have, but I didn't. I just turned the car around, so I was pointed out of there. And the back, where I had all the cans of food and stuff, I said, you guys hungry? Oh, yeah, we're hungry. I said, well, we got to start a fire. We got to insulate the building. We have to do this. And so I said, first, all the limbs, right? And then we got to get some firewood. And this one kid, well, we have to drive to Lowe's and get firewood. I said, no. There's these big limbs. These are the little limbs. Get the little limbs first. And make a pile, break them so they're like no longer than 10 inches or a foot long, and make a gigantic pile of those that you can easily pick up. Not that they're all, tangled up in each other. Break them. It's cold. The thing will break, right? And I said, over here, look, there's a stone here, and limbs that are bigger than your thumb that you can't break over your knee. You put there, and you step on it, right? So, they're doing that. They're making a pile of little limbs, next size limbs, into, things that are about this big, right? So they're doing a pretty good job of that. And so I go in, and I said, okay, and the boys are doing that, right? A couple of girls, but the girls are like pulling the stuff in, the boys are smashing it. They're good for smashing. So the other girls, I got them, okay, we're going to take all this stuff, and look, the space between the logs, we're going to take garbage and stuff it in there, right? And I got these kind of screwdrivers and other things, so really kind of bigger stuff than the stuff we just kind of push in there, and everywhere the wind is blowing in, we push, and you push it in, and then you push more garbage in, and more garbage, and more garbage. And all of the spaces between the logs, we have to fill up, right? Okay. So they're doing that. And so I get the girl who I got at the truck stop and her buddy, because she likes girls. So there's three of them, right? So those three, the sisters, I call them, they come and unload my truck, right? Okay, let's take all this stuff in. And I said, okay, so there's this nice one table. We're going to move it over here, right? And there is a sink, right? So, okay. And they had a cistern inside of the place, right? So I said, let's go. Oh, there's this other table that's like a coffee table. Let's put it over near the cistern. So there's two buckets. So you start, let's first empty all the stuff out of the car, bring it here, put it on the table. Then the two of you go or three of you go get water from the stream and put it in that cistern. Okay, so they do that. And in that time, I'm first making a fire in the fireplace just to see if the chimney is, clogged or anything, because the wood stove is like connected into that chimney. So anyway, I'm doing that, made a nice little fire, and the other people are chinking away, sticking garbage into the thing. So like within an hour, the place is pretty much chinked out. All the goodies are brought in. The culvert, the big thing for the water, for the sink, that's kind of filled up, and the place is almost warm. It's not 20 degrees. It's probably 50 degrees, right? So the guys, I said, now let's start stacking wood over here inside the cabin, so if it snows or does anything, we don't have to go outside. And so let's make as much, wood over in the corner over here, and let's make it a nice pile so we can easily get at it. And so they're doing that. And then I said, okay, keep bringing in that wood. So the stuff you all brought up, let's start making a pile in that place that's covered, right? Between the shed and the house. And they start doing that because there's a door there that goes from the cabin right to that space. So we're doing pretty good. It's an hour or two. So I have a couple of pots, right? So we, basically... and I had some, scrubby things and some soap, and so we start cleaning off the big frying pan, and we start cleaning off the big cauldron, and so we're doing great, right? And so the cauldron's going to be for hot water and for washing and cleaning, and that'll be our hot water heater, and because you can move it around, and I have four, but I have a big pot, like a gallon pot, and then a half a gallon pot, and then a smaller frying pan, right? That's what I have. And I got a, flipper and a ladle and a couple of forks and knives and spoons, right? So, and I got a couple of nice sharp knives to cut things up with. So, and my can opener, my trusty can opener. So, within 2 hours, we got all the wood stacked up. We got all the place chinked. We got everything moved in. We got water in the cistern, and I got a nice fire burning in the big fireplace, and there's nothing, it's all going up good. I start a nice fire in the wood stove, and I said, let's drag that couch in, because if it rains or snows, that's the end of that couch. But if we bring it back in, we'll have a nice couch in here, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a bed inside that thing. And they said, is it? I said, yeah. Wasn't it really heavy to move it? Yeah. And I said, so they moved it in, and it was a couch. I mean, it was a bed, right? So I said, there's 6 of you. Yeah, you can all fit on that bed. I got a couple blankets. You can all do that. Me, I'll just sleep on the other couch. So anyway, so we, get going, and it's really good, and I make a real big dinner with all the stuff, and there was still a lot of burdock, ton of burdock that was growing over along the stream. So I said, pick see, this is burdock here. Do you see what a burdock, hold that, pick as much as that you can find. And so I made, it's like spinach. So that big frying pan, I had a couple of onions, cut them up and put them in the frying pan. I had oil, sizzle, and the burdock in there. And then I opened up a couple of cans of beef stew and a nice big can of, sweet potatoes, right? And I dump it in there. And then my gallon thing, I filled up with water, and water that I had 3 gallon of distilled, and I put half a gallon, and I had a thing of rice. So I boiled up the rice. So we had a nice big pot of rice, and we had the nice burdock, beef stew, onions, and I had some bread. And so I'd taken a lot of the food that I had made that evening for them, and that's the one thing I did put in the car, right? All the black bread, all the, things of food that I made that, I kind of wrapped up and went in the fridge. I put that in bags and then in a garbage bag and put that in the car. And that was the one thing. And my stuff, like I said, my wallet, my this, my that, a few other things. But I didn't, move everything out. I didn't expect John to go through all my stuff. Anyway, so, we're having our first good night, and they got some herb that's pretty good. And so we're smoking up, and it's really nice, right? So, next day, it's still a sunny day. Getting a little colder, and the way the clouds are moving, it's kind of You could feel that probably if clouds were to move in, it would probably snow. I said, so while it's still dry, let's, instead of 100 feet around the cabin, let's go, you know, half a mile, quarter mile. It's far out. Just start bringing all the wood that's on the floor. They're like, what floor? I said, the floor of the forest. Forest has a floor? I said, yes. It's dirt, It's these kids were like, whew. Anyway, so they did. They went up there, and I said, this is how you drag it. There was some rope. I said, you make a pile, two guys drag the pile over underneath where it'll be covered. And so we did. We filled that whole thing up. That was like maybe 30, 40 feet by about 12 feet, We just filled it up with wood, and I had a tarp, right? So I covered it up with a tarp, put some rocks on it. So I said, this is enough wood to probably last till March, right? And look, we did this in a day and a half, right? So anyway, we're still doing, that's our big project. And so I go out there, and I'm seeing what stuff's around. Is there more burdock that we can pick? Is there stuff still growing? Are there any mushrooms? And I got the girls into that, right? And so, and I have these bags, and so they're picking burdock, and I'm looking around. I got my little spyglass. I'm looking around, and all of a sudden I see something, right? And so I put that away, and I talking to them. Oh, go over there and look for this, and oh, go over there, and I'm gonna go look over here. And I kind of go around from what I saw, and when I got to this place, there were 6 military guys, right? And they had their guns, and they had their packs, and they were totally decked. And I said, so boys, did you run away from home? And they kind of, they saw me coming, so they didn't run. And they saw what I'd done, so they didn't run. They saw that we had no guns whatsoever. They had been spying on the gang for a day. And so I just sat there. I said, I have some coffee and some tea in my car that I haven't really used yet, and there's still a lot of food there, and why don't you come and meet the kids, right? And I said, well, we didn't want to, no. I said, this is good. Those kids are at a loss. They are just pathetic. You guys know what you're doing. You're trained. You need to train them. And you have been trained to protect, right? Serve and protect. Don't serve these kids, but protect them. Teach them, right? You guys will be great for each other. You're almost the same. You're a little older than they are. They're in their early 20s. You're in your mid to late 20s. You guys have all been in country, right? There was one girl soldier, and 6 men. And they said, and I saw the way they were treating her, like part of the troop, but protecting her. So these guys would be good for these kids. So I said, come on, let's go. And so I did. We went in, and the kids, I got up to the thing, and the kids didn't even notice. Oh, what? I could. Ah! And I said, no. They're our friends, right? They're here to serve and protect. So, cool your jets. Be nice to these people. And I got the kids together. I said, listen, all of you, you know squat. You're a bourgeois bunch of punks. You weren't set up to go on camping. You took the AT. You only went 200 miles on the AT. Why was that? Because you partied your asses off on the AT. You let ATs party central, and everyone shares. You had nothing to give, right? Now you do. These people can teach you things that you need to know. And by that, you can teach them things they need to understand. Meaning what the world is, and you are the perfect example of the bourgeois brats who are running this world, right? All your parents are wealthy, but they're not. They're just overextended. And if you want to, God put all of us together, me to tell both of you need each other, and you need to work together. And if you can do this and stay here till spring, you can go out and do whatever you want. You can be the decider. You need to put God's love in your heart Right now, all you do is think about yourself. These guys, they're getting over the trauma of and they'll tell you their stories, and it'll be good. You guys need to tell them your story. I'm going to stay here until everybody is like telling each other their stories and getting Kimosabi together to understand what they're going to do next. And so that was great, right? So that's day 2. So we have and I said, we're going to have a Thanksgiving here, a real one, right? Not a pretend one in November, but a real one right here. And this is, the beginning of the year, right? February's almost here, right? And it's going to be a cold February. So I would say, guys, stay here, right? And maybe we'll go out, me and the girl with the connects that are in the neighborhood, maybe we'll go out and do more shopping, get some money from her family. And that's because, earlier in that day, we were all in there staying warm and talking, and I'm cooking, and people are chopping, and the army guys are showing everyone, survival things, and everything is going great. And then all ding, and I said, "Whoa, what's that?" And it's this girl's cell phone, right? It's like nuclear powered. How did you get? So I have a little solar battery that I just kind of plug in my phone, and I said, "Oh, okay." And so she answers, and it's her aunt who lives like 40 miles from there, right? And they were like heading that way, and then they got lost, and they found the cabin, and then the girl went to find her aunt, and she ended up in the whatchamacallit. She was sitting there, spare changing, but charging her phone in the sunlight when I met her. Anyway, so we she talks to the aunt and says, "Oh, we're here and we're fine and we're going to stay here, but there's this nice man that has a car. Could we drive over and get some money from you and go shopping?" And the lady says, "Sure. Why don't here it is Wednesday. Why don't you come Friday or Saturday? Come Saturday, right? We'll go shopping. I'll take you to Walmart, so get whatever you need, right?" So that's it. So it's Wednesday. So we have Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday we're off, right? And so we have really good, the guys have some stuff in their packs too. So we're all getting friendly and they're showing them all kinds of, how to do this with a knife and how to do that. And they're training them to survive, right? These kids need to know that. And they're kind of getting off on being self-sufficient only in 2 days, right? So, well, it's been now 4 days, right? And so Friday is the big day. We have another big, nice whoop-de-doo. Pretty much every night we have a party. No, a little bit of boo, and that's about it. So we go to the supermarket, and so I haven't talked to John. Now it's been like a week, right? I haven't talked to John at all, right? My phone is totally dead. I've got nothing to plug it into, and I don't care. I left it in the car, just don't care. So anyway, so we go to a Walmart's, and the aunt is there. We go to the aunt, we meet the aunt, and then we go to no, we meet at Walmart's. We meet at Walmart's, and so they're going around and shopping, and I'm in my little, motorized buggy, and I'm getting this, that, and the other thing. And so we're waiting online, and my legs hurt. So the whole thing about my body is I have to move, but at a certain point, I need to sit down. So that's why my wheelchair, my wheelchair there, it's like my SUV. It's like I walk behind it, so I use it as a walker, but if I need to sit down, I sit down. And if I need to move stuff, I put it in the seat, right? So that's kind of what it is. So anyway, so we're going through the line, and I'm standing, and the girl's aunt is in now the riding buggy because her legs hurt. She's like a little younger than me, but she's way bigger. I mean, I'm already starting to, I've already I died in 2014. This is 2015. I'm basically have lost 70 pounds, right? And I've given pretty much, I'm in the process of getting rid of all my wealth, giving all my wealth to the poor, right? And I've kept the school and I've kept the deep green, right? And I'm moving towards that, right? And then I sold the school to Johnny in 2015. And so, I'm moving towards, but Johnny needs serious help. And because, he hasn't done the reclamation of the school yet. I mean, John did a great job on fixing it up with his daddy's money and my assistance and his neuroses. And that's when we did all those YouTubes, right? So anyway, we and before we did the old crone story. I told you the old crone story on Johnny's channel. Um, you know, before he threw me out. So he throws me out in January of 2015, right? So anyway, it might have been January of 2006. I don't know when it was, but somewhere in there. Anyway, so I'm standing up and I've got my little cane and I no longer have my clamps on my legs. I'm like pretty much standing on my own. And so anyway, we're waiting on it. And then all of a sudden I feel this squeezing of my arm. I look over and there's this woman. She looks like the Michelin Man. And she's squeezing my arm. And she goes, "Are you a handyman?" And I go, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "I need a handyman." I said, and excuse me? She goes, "Well, I just bought this big, magnificent house and nothing seems to work. And I'm there with my mother and my crazy brother. And and no one wants to help. I call people up and they don't come to the house to help us." I said, "Do you have any heat?" She goes, "Oh, yes. Oh, the heat kind of works, but it needs some, like the upstairs, I got it at 90 degrees. It's really nice. And the house is beautiful. And there's 6 bedrooms and they all have their own, they're like suites." And she goes on and on. It sounds pretty groovy. So I look at the aunt, and I look at the girl, and I look at the woman who looks like a Michelin Man. And so that woman, she looks like she is somewhere between 58 and 62 in fair shape. Now she looks like she's got this kind of jacket that has, looks like tires, the Michelin Man, right? So I go, "Sure, no problem." So I got a car. So we kind of, and she's like right behind us, and we're talking. And I said, "Listen, kids," to the girl and the aunt. I said, "Aunt, you got a 4-wheel drive, right?" And she goes, "Yes, I do." And so I say to the girl, "And you can find your way back to the cabin?" "Oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I got it." And I said, "Well, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm going to go with this lady, right? The adventure continues. So you're all good, right?" And as we're going out, the three of us, and I'm back in the, I grab one of the ride-along wagons because my legs need to sit down. So anyway, we're driving out, and I said, "Listen," to the aunt. I said, "Listen, this is probably the best thing because she and I are in the motorized wagons and Michelin ladies going over to her car to bring it around, and we're heading towards my vehicle. And no, we're actually heading towards the aunt's vehicle, right?" And so I say, "Listen, this is the best thing that's ever happened to your niece and her friends because they're out in the woods and they found this cabin and I showed them how to fix it up so they could survive there. We did that in 2 days. Then we met some interesting young soldiers who are like out of Afghanistan, and our government has just thrown them away, and they're out in the woods doing what they do best. And if you just be a support and let them stay there until May or July, your niece will grow up. She will become an adult in these months of surviving that. And you got a car, you can go check on it, you see where it is. And don't call the police and don't involve anybody. You be the outside support. You bring them food, right? And you, too, could learn something. Because she tells me that, she's divorced, she has no kids, she had a career, she has a lot of money. And I said, this would be good for you. You should like camp out there when it gets springtime, right? Anyway, so we separate our ways. That Michelin lady has a nice Range Rover, and I follow her. And she lives about 20 miles away, and it's kind of right on the border of West Virginia and Virginia, right? She's off at 220 also, so she's kind of right over there. And there's a little town over there, and it's a very bourgeois town. Like nearby it, it's a little college town, real little college town. And so anyway, it's kind of what like Boone was back in the day. Anyway, so we drive into a place and we're going down the main street, and it's a nice main street, and there's two or three nice restaurants that support the college when the parents come, and there's seemingly other kind of businesses there because they're not too far from 220 and which leads to 460 and 81. So anyway, so they're kind of right on the edge of the industrial world. So anyway, we go through town and then we kind of go up back towards West Virginia on this road that's still a big county road that gets plowed and taken care of, and we kind of go up, and then there's this hill and this gigantic, big, beautiful house with a big gate, and kind of that's their place. We drive up there, and they got a big, gigantic, like 5-car garage, and she has a car, and it's just full of stuff. They've just kind of moved there, and they just dumped all the stuff there, and we go in, and we go in through the garage into the basement, and the basement is totally macked out. I mean, it's not it's like covered in sheetrock and wood wall. It's very nice, and it's got a fireplace, and then there's a whole kind of shop on the backside over here. There's a whole other side where it's kind of cut in a mountain, and you walk, and there's a jacuzzi on the inside, and there's big glass sliding doors that looks out into the mountains, and there's a big, beautiful patio with a, stone thing with a grill, a gas grill, and really, really nice. And two little sheds back there, and a beautiful lawn, but, it's cold. And anyway, and that area is a little nippy, and so I'm looking around, and I'm seeing where everything is, and there is like, an electric room, place where the boiler is, and the heating system is, and the HVAC system is, and the electric panels are, and stuff like that, right? And the internet and all that stuff, right? So, and then we kind of go out, and there's this nice stairs, and it goes upstairs. It's not like a garage, but it's a nice stairs, open stairs up to the upstairs, and it comes out into this foyer. That's where it's kind of like a mudroom, but it's like a big, beautiful slate floor, and a bathroom over there, and a door into the kitchen, and that goes into the multi-purpose room, and then goes into the big, great room with a big vaulted ceiling, and it has a big thing up there where the staircase goes up, and there's 2 or 3 bedrooms there, and then it goes that away. That's the whole other section of the house, which they kind of have closed down, right? So I go, wow, this is pretty amazing. And I meet Grandma, and Grandma's like kind of like me. She's a little older than I am. I'm like maybe, so let's say it's 2015. So I'm 65, I guess, somewhere near there. Yeah, 65. Or a little older, maybe. Who knows? But around 65. She's maybe 70, right? But she's still pretty spry. Walks around very nicely. She's very, trim, worked out, very attractive. Her mom, so and Michelin girl, Susie Q. She's as nice as her mom, but is frumpy. Never really. I mean, she's not fat, but frumpy, right? She worked in the DMV. That's all I can have to say. So, mom's got some great stories. I got some. Mom really is happy to see me. Oh wow. And her son. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or the play. Old Arsenic and Old Slice. That's these girls, and the son is Teddy Roosevelt, right? So anyway, I'm looking at all this, and mom's a pretty good cook. Susie Q is, she can make toast and boil eggs and somewhat, but mom's always kind of you know it. And so anyway, and Teddy Roosevelt just so he basically what he spends is he does nothing, right, except Uber has just started. He's got his Uber account, and he goes down into Lynchburg, which is like 60, 70 miles away, and does Ubering for Lynchburg people. And God knows what he does there, but he does it and makes it back home anyway. And if it's gonna snow or stuff, he stays offline. So anyway, that's I've just gave you the cast of characters and the set piece. So mom makes dinner, and mom also kind of loves herb, so she's got her stash, and she's making, cookies and gummies, and she's got a little side business going on doing that, and so I get pretty toasted, baked with her, and I don't even have to smoke, and so we're having a great old time telling stories, and the daughter is just there, kind of. She goes and watches television in her suite, right? And Teddy, he's upstairs watching television, doing his thing. So, mom owns this place. Mom made money. Mom has money. Mom had a life, right? Daughter, went to college, got a job at DMV and worked 30 years there. She is taken home probably, her retirement, her 401k, her mom invested money for her, so she's got a nice nest egg. And same with Teddy, right? So none of these people are hurting for cash, right? And Mr. Amazon visits this place like 5 times a day. So Susie Q, she's all into crafts. So she goes down in the basement here, which is kind of like where you would have the kids run around and they have like a movie room and this room, but they have a big open space that goes in a door to the garage and a door to this other place where the jacuzzi is and the big patio. So this is like the party basement, right? So there's this whole other kind of place where the kids would play. That's maybe 40 by 40 square foot space that comes off of this kind of party space, right? And the party space has got wood paneling, and it's got a fireplace, and has a bar. I mean, it's definitely got couches, got a big TV. Anyway, so she says, I want to make my crafts and thing, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. And out of that, there is a door that kind of cuts into, opens the door, and there's steps that go up to where you walk, 100 feet, and that's these two little sheds that have been placed there recently. Brand new, kind of nice. Everything's dry going there, and she has just chock-a-block full of crafty stuff, right? And there is someone had there is a electric box out there, so that's where they put these, someone had the idea that maybe they were going to put something over there, so they put water and electric over there, right? And the water, so I'm checking it all out the next day, and everything's great. When they bought it, the guys who sold it to them had somebody who took care of the place for that year, and shut that side of the house off and drained all the water pipes, and everything's great, right? The heating system was a very interesting hybrid. So it was gas, but it also had this Swedish furnace that you could burn wood. It would be like a water heater and heat the air. And so they also had another like gigantic hot water heater for everyone's hot water, and another gigantic hot water heater for baseboard heating on that main floor. So you could have zoned kind of heating and air conditioning. So it was quite exciting. So that's what it, nothing kind of worked because the little apparatus that controlled everything was, I had to take it apart and figure out why it didn't work and then put it back together and then clean it up and do this and do that to it. And, bang, like 3 hours of fooling around with it, I got everything to work just great. So did that. And then I kind of looked at all her stuff and I said, okay, so you want this room here, this kids' playroom, 40 by 40, to be your crafts room, right? And she goes, yes. I said, so let's make a drawing, architectural, floor plan of how you want it set up, and that's how I'll set it up, right? And she goes, really? I say, yep. Well, I'll put shelves, I'll put tables. You're nonstop Amazon. We'll go online. We'll pick out all the stuff you want. They'll deliver it. I'll put it together, put it up. It'll be great. And so she goes, I'm so excited. I feel so great. I feel like a new person. That's great. That's what you're supposed to be doing, right? So anyway, she gets all this stuff delivered. I put it together, put the shelves up, da-da-da. I put outlets here, there, and everywhere, lighting to make things really great, and that's what I do. I see the lighting right there. Anyway, and at night we would go and have great dinners. Mom's great cook. Um, Susie Q, she wasn't a bad. She had one of those bread machines. She could make bread pretty good. So we had bread, Mom's food. The gummies and yummies that Mom's making, her THC brownies were out of this world. Anyway, and she had, she's just good baker with a good yummy toasty baker, right? And so I said, okay, after the first week, and I've still got like lots of stuff to do in this place, right? Because I'm going to get everything working. I'm going to get everything so they can have this place humming in summertime, because Mom has friends from all over the place, and Susie Q does have friends too, right? So, and I have a nice suite. I mean, I have the suite of the mountain range, I have my own fireplace, my own bathroom with jacuzzi, a beautiful shower, a really nice bed. I mean, it was, so anyway, so I'm doing really nice. And Mom, every time, so I get things done, and I say to them, okay, I'm going to work one day off. Work one day off. And the one day off, I'm going downtown. I'm going to have lunch. If you girls want to have lunch with me, come on, let's go. If not, I'm going by myself. And they had a charger. I didn't have a charger. They had a charger that worked on my phone. And so I charged it up. So I said, and they didn't really, you had to have like some super duper phone. I had like, a Walmart nothing phone. They had all $1,000 phones. So, my phone didn't really work up there. Theirs did, but, mine not so much. So, I would go in town. It was great. Wi-Fi, it was all that. Wi-Fi, and there was this one great restaurant, had great food, great bar, great people, loads of fun. It was like Cheers. After the first time I went there, I was like one of the regulars, and, I'd come every other day, and there was a couple cute waitresses that loved to flirt. The owner, she was a great person. Her husband, who was always working, would come in, and he would talk, and we'd talk about all kinds of interesting stuff. And there were other people. It was a college town. There were retired college professors who, there were some scholars, some academics. So I had fun with those guys. And they had a nice library. I went up to their library at that college, and whatchamacallit, one of the professors was still teaching. He said, "Oh, this guy's my bud. He can use the library." And so, that was it. So I had a college I could hang out in. I had a library I could hang out in. I had a Cheers to hang out in, and I had Mom and Susie Q and Teddy Roosevelt. So it was pretty freaking. Every day was a wild adventure, and I had my laptop, so I was clicking away on my laptop. So yeah, it was. So I was there almost a month, if not more. And once I got, a week or two into like being serious, working every day on getting things together in that house, that's when I so let's go downtown and let's check it out. And that was our first adventure. And what's his name? Teddy Roosevelt. He went off to you know make be Uber and in Lynchburg, and he would stay there. He'd get a hotel room or whatever. I mean, he wasn't always at the house, right? He went off doing whatever he was doing. Like I said, none of these people were hurting for cash. So I